My name is Frances Frell. I am 32 years old. 2 hours ago, I signed 3 documents that will cost my father everything he built. He doesn't know yet. Right now he's inside that house, straightening his tie, rehearsing a speech he wrote on a yellow legal pad. 25 family members are seated at a long table with good china and candles Diane picked out. There's a framed certificate propped on an easel behind his chair. A photographer is already here. I know exactly what he's going to say. I found the speech on his desk 4 days ago. And what he wrote about the daughter he always deserved is the reason I drove to a lawyer's office this afternoon and signed my name on papers that will change this family forever. When I was 8 years old, my father drove me to a construction site on Route 9 on a Saturday morning. He lifted me onto a stack of plywood and pointed at a steel beam running across the ceiling of a half-finished house. You see that beam, Franny? That's what holds everything up. Without it, the whole thing falls. That's what you're going to be someday. I believed him. I believed everything he said back then. My father is Rick Frell, owner of Frell and Sons Construction. He started as a laborer at 19, took the company over from his father Harold at 31, and built it into the biggest residential contractor in Ridgewood County. My mother died when I was 7. Ovarian cancer. She was 34. After she was gone, it was just me, my father, and my grandfather Harold, a man who smelled like cedar shavings and kept butterscotch in his desk drawer. Harold held everything together. He ran the books, negotiated contracts, trained the crews. My father swung the hammer. Harold built the structure. Every Sunday after church, Harold would take me to his study. A solid cedar desk, a brass lamp, a glass paperweight shaped like a bear. He'd sit me on his lap and let me stamp invoices with a company seal. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small in your own family, he told me once. I was 9. I didn't understand it then. That was before Diane. My father met Diane Mitchell when I was 18, 2 weeks before I left for college. She was a receptionist at the dentist's office on Oak Street. She had a daughter named Megan from her first marriage. Megan was 8. Diane was warm, attentive. She brought casseroles. She laughed at my father's jokes. She made him feel seen in a way he hadn't felt since my mother died. I understood that. I didn't blame him for it. But Diane's warmth had a radius. It extended to my father, to Megan, to the neighbors she wanted to impress. It did not extend to me. Her smile changed when my father left the room. Not dramatically, just less. Like a lamp switched to a lower setting. 3 months after the wedding. Frances, honey, Megan really needs her own space. Would you mind moving your things to the guest room? My bedroom became Megan's craft room. My posters came down. Her butterfly stickers went up. By Christmas, the family photo on the mantel had changed. By the next Christmas, there was a new frame entirely. A professional portrait. Rick, Diane, and Megan in matching blue sweaters. I was at college when they took it. Nobody told me. I wanted to be a structural engineer. I had wanted it since that morning on Route 9. When I asked my father to help pay for college, he sat at the kitchen table and rubbed the back of his neck. Engineering's a tough field, Franny. Expensive, too. Diane thinks maybe you should consider teaching. Steady hours, good benefits. I looked at him. Diane thinks. We both think. I applied for every scholarship I could find. I worked nights at a copy center. I graduated with a degree in structural engineering, $37,000 in student loans, and $0 from my father. He came to my graduation. He sat in the 5th row with Diane and Megan. Megan played games on Diane's phone through the entire ceremony. After it was over, my father hugged me and said, "Proud of you, Franny. Knew you'd figure it out." Then he left before the reception. Diane had dinner reservations. The phone calls got shorter after that. Every semester, shorter. Every holiday, longer excuses. "Oh, Franny, we thought you were staying at school for Thanksgiving. Megan has a recital on Christmas Eve, so we're doing dinner early this year. Did I not tell you?" He always forgot to tell me. Or someone made sure he forgot. My grandfather Harold died on a Tuesday in March. Heart attack at the cedar desk in his study. They found him with his reading glasses still on and a half-finished cup of coffee by the brass lamp. 200 people came to the funeral. Harold was the kind of man who remembered your kids' names and asked about your dog. Diane complained about the seating arrangement. Immediate family should be in the front pew. Rick. Not cousins. Not old friends. She meant herself and Megan. She did not mean me. Aunt Patrice moved me to the front pew herself, without a word. After the service, Harold's attorney pulled me aside. Martin Cope, a quiet man in a brown suit who had represented Harold for 30 years. Your grandfather left something for you, Francis. 40% of Frell and Sons Construction, held in a trust. It vests when you turn 30. I stared at him. Your father knows the trust exists, but not the specifics. Martin handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a single sheet in Harold's handwriting. Your father is a good man, with a weak spine. This 40% is your seat at the table. Don't give it up for anyone. I was 24. I had 6 years before any of it mattered. I folded the letter, put it in my coat pocket, and walked up past Harold's study. The cedar desk was still there. The brass lamp was still on. On my 30th birthday, I drove to Martin's office and signed the paperwork that made the trust official. 40% of Frell and Sons was now mine, not in a drawer but in the state registry, the tax filings, the LLC operating agreement. Martin walked me through all 43 pages. Harold had drafted it with an attorney named Judith Greenwald in 1999. My father had signed it without reading past page 4. Clause 7.3, Martin said, tapping the page. This is the one your grandfather wanted you to know about. I read it twice. Voluntary relinquishment by any member triggers mandatory buyback at independently appraised fair market value. Remaining members must complete buyback within 90 calendar days or forfeit operational control to a court-appointed trustee. Your grandfather wrote that clause specifically to protect you, Martin said. If you ever chose to leave the company, they would have to pay you fair value. They cannot simply absorb your shares. And if they cannot pay, the LLC restructures under court supervision. Your father would lose day-to-day control.
I sat with that for a long time.
I hope I never need this, I said. Martin nodded. Harold hoped the same thing. I filed the agreement in a fireproof box in my closet. I designed bridges and parking garages and hospital wings. I paid off my student loans. I bought a condo 45 minutes from Ridgewood. I tried. I want that on the record. I tried for 2 full years. 2 years of trying looked like this. An email to my father the week I turned 30. Dad, I'd like to discuss my role in the company. Can we set up a time to talk? He replied 4 days later. Sure, Franny. Let's talk soon. Soon never came. I called Diane and proposed a family dinner. Rick has been so stressed lately. Maybe next month. Next month became the month after that, which became silence. I invited my father to lunch 3 times. He canceled the first. He forgot the second. The third time, he showed up 20 minutes late, ate half a sandwich, and left when Diane texted that Megan needed a ride. 14 minutes. That was our longest conversation in 2 years. I sent a formal letter, not legal, just clear. I outlined my position in the company. I asked for quarterly meetings. I asked to be included in financial reviews. Certified mail and email both. My father forwarded the email to Diane. I know because Diane called me the next day. Francis, why are you creating drama? Can't you see your father's happy? If you want to be part of this family, just show up and be pleasant. I'm trying to show up, Diane. Nobody answers the door. She hung up. 14 emails. 3 voicemails. 2 certified letters. 0 responses. 0 meetings. 0 acknowledgement that I owned 40% of a company that paid my father's mortgage, funded Megan's car, and kept the lights on at 27 job sites across Ridgewood County. Then came a text from my father, unusual because he normally communicated through Diane. Father's Day dinner. Sunday the 15th, 6 p.m. Be there. The whole family. Dad. I read it 3 times. I called Aunt Patrice.
He's planning something, she said.
Diane has been organizing for weeks. New tablecloth, candles, the good silverware. She even hired a photographer. A photographer. For a Father's Day dinner. I had a feeling. Not proof, not certainty, just a slow, heavy feeling in my chest, like the moment before a beam test when you know the load is too much but you haven't heard the crack yet. I called Martin Cope that evening. If I ever decide to exercise clause 7.3, how fast can you prepare the paperwork? A pause. I can have everything ready for signature by Thursday. Draft it. I'm not saying I'll sign. I just want it ready. Friday before the dinner, I went to my father's house to help set up. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and Diane's perfume. I found my name card at the far end of the table, between a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 3 years and an empty chair. My father's seat was at the head. Megan's card was to his right. Diane's to his left. I carried the chairs. I hung the banner. I said nothing. Then I walked past the kitchen counter and saw it. A gold-edged frame. Ornate, the kind you use for something you want people to notice. Inside, a small white card read, Certificate of Adoption, State of North Carolina. I heard Megan's voice from the other room, laughing. I know. I'm so excited. It's going to be official. I picked up my keys. I drove home, without turning on the radio. Saturday morning, I stopped at Aunt Patrice's house on Birch Lane. She pushed a plate of cinnamon rolls toward me and came back from the hallway holding a photograph. A new family portrait. Rick, Diane, and Megan. Professional lighting, matching outfits. No gap. No empty space where a fourth person should have been. When was this taken?
March.
Diane posted it on Facebook. I looked at the photo for a long time. 3 people. Complete. Asked your father about it, Patrice said, stirring her coffee. He said you preferred not to be in photos. I never said that. I know you didn't. The clock above the stove ticked. Outside, a lawnmower droned. What are you going to do, honey? I'm going to go to the dinner, I said. And I'm going to see what happens. 2 weeks before Father's Day, at Cousin Nathan's barbecue, I arrived late and walked around the side of the house to the backyard. Megan was standing near the grill with 3 cousins, holding a soda can, talking fast. I was maybe 10 feet away, close enough to hear every word. It's going to be official. Dad is adopting me, like, legally. Diane already filed the papers. A cousin said something I couldn't hear. Megan shrugged. I mean, Frances, she was never really part of this family anyway. She barely comes around. She doesn't even work for the business. I stopped walking. Megan looked up and saw me. She did not flinch. She did not apologize. She held my eyes for 2 full seconds and then shrugged again. I mean, it's true though. Cousin Nathan coughed. Claire looked at the ground. Nobody spoke. I set my paper plate on the edge of the picnic table. I hadn't put anything on it yet. I turned and walked back to my car. I drove home. I called Martin. What time can I come in on Friday? The following Tuesday, I went to my father's office to drop off quarterly tax documents, the only reason I ever visited anymore. The front desk was empty. I walked down the hall. His office door was open. On his desk, next to a coffee mug and a stack of invoices, was the framed certificate. And beside it, a yellow legal pad. My father's handwriting. A draft of a speech. I should not have read it. But I did. Family means everything to me. Today, on this Father's Day, I want to make it official. I am adopting Megan Elizabeth Mitchell as my daughter. She has brought light into my life, purpose into my home, and joy into every single day. I finally have the daughter I always deserved. I counted the words. 47. Megan's name appeared twice. Mine appeared 0 times. I set the quarterly paperwork on the counter by the door. I did not leave a note. I walked out past the trucks in the gravel lot with Frell and Sons stenciled on the doors. I sat in my car for 11 minutes before I could start the engine. Wednesday evening, I called Martin. The paperwork we discussed, is it ready? Ready to sign whenever you are. If I sign on Friday and the dinner is Sunday, can you hold the filing in case I change my mind? I can hold the executed documents for 48 hours. If you want to cancel, you call me and I shred them. No filing, no record, no consequence. And if you don't call, I file Monday morning at 9. The 90-day clock starts. Your father receives formal notice 7 to 10 business days after that. I stared at my soup. It had gone cold. Friday at 2, I said. I'll be there. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to walk into that dinner and have my father look at me, really look at me, and say one thing that told me I still mattered to him. That was all. One sentence. One moment of recognition. If he gave me that, I would call Martin, and it would all go away. Friday afternoon, I stopped at my father's house one more time to help Patrice with centerpieces. Diane was in the backyard. My father was at the office. I was alone in the kitchen arranging napkins when Diane's phone buzzed on the counter. Face up. I wasn't trying to look, but I saw the notification. A group chat.
Frell family.
3 participants, Rick, Diane, Megan. I was not in the group. Diane's message, sent 40 minutes earlier, after Sunday, we reclassify her shares as dormant. Talked to the accountant Monday. My father's reply, she won't even notice. She never comes to meetings. And below that, Megan, can we change the locks on the office too? LOL. I stood very still. The kitchen faucet dripped. Outside, one of Megan's friends laughed at something. I picked up Diane's phone. I took 3 screenshots. I sent them to my own number. I deleted the sent messages from Diane's text log. I placed the phone exactly where it had been, screen down, plugged in. I walked to the hallway. I stopped in front of Harold's study, my hand on the cedar desk. The wood was warm from the afternoon sun. 6 years of trust. 14 years of patience. And they were planning to erase me from the ledger the same week they erased me from the family. I took my hand off the desk. I drove to Martin's office. I signed the papers. The notary was a woman named Patricia, short gray hair, reading glasses on a chain. She did not make small talk. I sat in Martin's office at 2:14 on a Friday afternoon and signed my name on 3 documents. The relinquishment of my 40% stake. The request for independent appraisal. The formal notification to remaining members. Martin watched me sign each one without rushing me, without asking if I was sure. When I finished, he placed the documents in a blue folder. Once I file these Monday, the 90-day clock starts. Based on the most recent revenue figures, your 40% is worth approximately $320,000. If they cannot pay within 90 days, they forfeit operational control. The LLC restructures under court supervision. I nodded. You still have the 48-hour window, he said. Call me any time before Sunday at 2:14, and I shred everything. I drove home. I opened the fireproof box and read Harold's note one last time. The table always has a seat for you, sweetheart. I closed the folder. Sunday morning, I woke at 6:37. The light through my bedroom window was pale blue, the kind that makes everything look quieter than it is. I lay there a while, thought about calling Martin, thought about shredding the whole thing, driving to my father's house with a bottle of wine and a card that said Happy Father's Day, Dad in my own handwriting. I could still do that. The window was still open. I got up, showered, stood in front of my closet for 11 minutes. I chose a navy dress, Harold's favorite color. I put on my mother's earrings, small gold hoops with a tiny sapphire. Aunt Patrice had saved them for me after my mother died. I called Patrice. I'll be there. You don't have to go, honey. I know. I arrived at 5:52. Cars lined both sides of Maple Lane. The house was lit up, loud with 25 people moving inside. Diane greeted me at the kitchen doorway. Oh, Francis, you came? How nice. Her smile was precise. Her perfume was strong. I found my seat at the far end of the table, between Cousin Derek and an empty chair. No spot near the head. Aunt Patrice appeared beside me, squeezed my hand under the table, and said nothing. At 7:15, my father tapped his wine glass with a fork. Diane dimmed the lights. The candles threw soft shadows on the walls. The photographer raised her camera. Behind my father's chair sat the gold-framed certificate on a small wooden easel. My father stood. He began the way he begins everything, with confidence he hasn't earned. He talked for 4 minutes. He talked about Diane's cooking. He talked about Megan's laugh. He talked about what it means to build a family from the ground up. He said Megan's name 11 times. He did not say mine once. Not a passing mention. Not both my daughters or my kids, or even all of you. He spoke as though the 8-year-old girl on the plywood stack had been a draft he later deleted. Megan Elizabeth Mitchell, I am legally adopting you as my daughter. The room erupted. Diane burst into tears. Megan threw her arms around him. Cousins clapped. Glasses were raised. My father held Megan at arm's length, his chin trembling, his eyes wet, and looked at the room. I finally have the daughter I always deserved. I sat at the end of the table with my hands folded in my lap. Nobody looked at me. Not because they were cruel, but because in the story my father was telling, I was not a character. I was not even a footnote. I was the empty chair between Cousin Derek and the wall. The 48-hour window was closing. I did not call Martin. During dessert, Diane pulled a chair close to mine. She smelled like vanilla and victory. Francis, I hope you understand. This is not about you. I looked at her. I understand completely, Diane.
Good.
Because we're all family here. She patted my arm and walked back to Rick.
Not about me.
After 14 years of being moved to the edge of every frame, forgotten on every holiday, erased from the business my grandfather built, it was not about me. She was right about that, actually. It was never about me. That was the whole problem. Before I left, I walked down the hall to Harold's study. Dark except for the porch light through the window. Same cedar desk. Same brass lamp. Same glass paperweight shaped like a bear. I opened the top right drawer. Inside, beneath old bank statements and a box of paper clips, was Harold's original copy of the operating agreement. 43 pages, yellow with age, his handwriting in the margins. I turned to page 27, clause 7.3. He had underlined it in blue ink. In the margin, 5 words. RF signed without reading. Keep safe. RF, Rick Frell, my father. In the dining room, Diane laughed. The photographer's camera clicked. Grandfather, I whispered to the empty room. I tried. I really tried. I closed the drawer. I went back to the table and finished my lemon square. I helped clear the dishes, because that's what my mother taught me. You clean up after a meal, even if nobody notices. Diane was in the living room helping Rick hang the adoption certificate on the mantel, in the exact spot where my college graduation photo used to be. I dried my hands on a dish towel and found Aunt Patrice in the hallway. I'm leaving. She pulled me into a hug, the kind where you feel the other person's heartbeat. What are you going to do? What I should have done 2 years ago. I walked to the living room. My father was in his recliner, Megan beside him, scrolling through photos on her phone. Happy Father's Day, Dad. He looked up.
Thanks, Franny.
Drive safe. He turned back to Megan's phone. Send that one to Uncle Gene. He did not stand up. He did not walk me to the door. I walked out. The night air was cool. Crickets. The smell of cut grass. I got in my car and sat for a moment. The 48-hour window was still open. I already knew I wouldn't be calling. Monday morning, 9:03. I was at my desk on the 4th floor of a building where I design things that hold weight. I picked up the phone. Martin, file it. A pause. Understood. Filing now. I opened my laptop. Pulled up blueprints for a hospital wing in Greensboro. Calculated a load-bearing wall for the pediatric unit. The work did not care about my father's speech. The beams did not care about adoption certificates or lemon squares. The numbers were clean. The numbers were honest. The numbers held. At noon, a text from Diane. Megan is interested in taking on more responsibility at the company. Your father thinks she could use your office since you rarely come in. Can you clear out your things by Friday? My office. The small room next to my father's where Harold used to keep the project files. Where I used to stamp invoices on Sunday mornings. I did not reply. 9 days later, my phone rang. The caller ID said Dad. Francis. His voice was shaking. Not with anger, with disbelief. What is this? What did you do? I exercised my rights under the operating agreement. This letter says you're relinquishing your shares. It says we owe you $320,000. Are you out of your mind? I'm exercising clause 7.3. Voluntary relinquishment with mandatory buyback at appraised fair market value. This is my business. Dad built this for me. Grandfather built it for the family. You decided who the family was. Silence. I heard him breathing. Diane's voice sharp in the background.
We need to talk about this.
Come to the house.
Sit down with me and Diane.
We'll sort it out as a family. My attorney will be in touch. This is a legal matter now. Francis, do not do this. Think about what you're doing to this family.
I have.
For 14 years. I hung up. The family meeting was the following Saturday. Same dining room. Same table. This time, 7 people. My father, Diane, Megan, Aunt Patrice, Uncle Jean, my attorney Carla Voss, and me. My father's face was red. Diane gripped a coffee mug. Megan's eyes were puffy. Tell me this is a bluff, my father said. This is not a bluff, Dad. Carla opened her folder and read Clause 7.3 aloud. Every word. The room went silent. That clause is ridiculous. It can't be enforceable. It has been part of the operating agreement for 27 years, Carla said. Signed by all current members. Never amended, challenged, or superseded. Diane shifted. Her posture softened. Her voice dropped half an octave. Francis, sweetie, we're family. Surely we can work this out without lawyers and folders. You had 14 years to work this out without lawyers, Diane. Her composure cracked, not with rage, but with something raw. Her voice broke. I just wanted my daughter to have a family. That's all I ever wanted. For 1 second I saw it. Not the strategist. Not the woman who cropped me out of photos and whispered narratives into my father's ear. I saw a woman who had been left once before by Megan's biological father and had spent every day since making sure it would never happen again. I felt something flicker. Empathy, recognition, the understanding that fear makes people build walls that crush the people on the other side. Then I looked at the mantel, at the adoption certificate hanging in the spot where my graduation photo used to be. The flicker went out. I saw the group chat, Dad. The room went still. Diane turned white. Every message, I said, my voice level. Reclassify her shares as dormant. Change the locks on the office.
My father looked at Diane.
Diane would not meet his eyes. You said Megan's name 11 times in your speech. Mine 0. You invited 25 people to watch you announce that Megan was your real daughter. You hung the adoption certificate in the exact spot where my graduation photo used to be. I paused. You said you finally had the daughter you always deserved. He flinched. I watched the words move through him the way a stress fracture propagates through concrete. Slow, invisible, and then all at once. Megan was crying again. This is not fair. You told our cousins I was never really part of this family. You looked me in the eye and said it was true. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I'm choosing to agree with you, Megan. I'm choosing to no longer be part of this family. And the operating agreement has a price for that. Aunt Patrice stood up. She had been silent through the entire exchange. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but absolutely steady.
Rick.
I told you this would happen. 3 years ago in this kitchen, I told you that you were losing Francis. You said I was overreacting. Patrice, this is not. Harold would be ashamed. She did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. Not of Francis.
Of you.
My father put his face in his hands. Uncle Jean leaned forward. Rick, just pay her what she's owed and apologize. My father lifted his face. His eyes were red. Where am I supposed to find $320,000 in 90 days? Nobody answered. I stood up. I picked up my purse. I looked at my father one last time. Smaller than I had ever seen him. Smaller than the man who pointed at a steel beam and told me I would be the thing that holds everything up. Dad, I gave you 14 years of chances. Emails, phone calls, certified letters. I gave you the dinner. I sat at that table and watched you choose. And I didn't say a word. He stared at me. His mouth was open. This is not revenge, I said. This is arithmetic. 40% of an $800,000 company is $320,000. That's not a punishment. That's a fact. I turned toward the door. Diane's voice followed me. If you walk out that door, you will never be welcome in this house again. I stopped. I looked back, not at Diane, at my father, waiting to see if he would say anything. Correct her. Object. Even hesitate. He did not. I turned to Diane. I'm not asking. I'm informing. I walked out. The sunlight was bright and sharp after the dim dining room. Carla followed. We walked to her car in silence. "Are you okay?" she asked. I looked at the house. The porch, where I used to sit with Harold on summer evenings. The driveway where I learned to ride a bike. The window of the room that used to be mine. "No," I said, "but I will be." 3 weeks later, the first check arrived in the mail. $100,000, first installment of 3. I deposited it at the branch on Caldwell Street and opened a money market account. My father took out a loan against the business. $110,000 at 8.5% interest, secured by the equipment yard and 2 company trucks. Diane co-signed. Then, for the first time I know of, she turned her anger toward Rick. "You should have read the damn agreement." Cousin Claire overheard it at the grocery store. "The walls in Ridgewood are thin." Megan's proposed role at the company was quietly shelved. No budget for a new position when the business was making installment payments on a $320,000 buyout. The following Saturday, Aunt Patrice drove 45 minutes to my condo. She brought a casserole, Harold's recipe, the one with the cornbread crust he made every Thanksgiving. We ate together at my small kitchen table, the one I bought at a yard sale the year I moved in. "Harold would be proud of you," she said. "I don't know about that." "I do." We washed the dishes together.
Patrice dried. I washed.
We did not talk about Rick or Diane or the certificate still hanging on the mantel at the house on Maple Lane. I did not win. There is no winning when your father looks at you and chooses someone else. There is no winning when the man who taught you what a beam does is the same man who removes you from the frame. But I learned something Harold tried to tell me a long time ago, sitting at that cedar desk with sawdust on his sleeves. Your seat at the table is not a gift anyone can take from you. It is something you build with your own hands. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up from a table where your plate was never set. That is my story. 14 years of patience. One operating agreement nobody read. And a Father's Day dinner that changed everything.